we go.
Hey, book warriors. Happy Sunday, March 28th. Diane, over there. And Melissa, and today we are here with Amy, right this way. Amy Pershing, who is the author of the debut, A Side of Murder, which is a foodie, what's the series title, a foodie mystery?
The Cape Cod Foodie Mysteries.
Okay, yes. So we're so glad that you're here with us, Amy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I'm in Asheville right now, up in the mountains of North Carolina, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, because my son is checking out the college here, which is where he's going to go. Diane is in, what do we say, like central, eastern, where do we live?
Area, like people usually know that.
Yeah, we live in the Chapel Hill, Durham area. I think that's central North Carolina. And Amy, where are you?
I'm in a weeny little town called Irwina, Pennsylvania, near the Delaware River, nice. But very country.
So is that where you're from? Like, have you always lived there, or?
No, well, it's complicated. No, I grew up in this area in Bucks County, but every summer of my life, my parents had this weeny little cottage up in Cape Cod, and my grandparents were up there, and my 10 cousins and my aunts and uncles and all of that. And those were in the days, where moms weren't really working. So they just picked up the 5 kids, threw them in the Volkswagen bus, and you went up to the Cape for the whole summer. And so it was kind of Cape Cod and Pennsylvania. And now I'm kind of Pennsylvania. My permanent home is in Weehawken, New Jersey, which is right across the river from New York City. And then the Cape, as we had to sell my mother's house because she left us 2 years ago. But we still get up to the Cape as much as we can every summer. My kids went up every summer with me. So the Cape.
I think I'm seeing where a lot of your ideas came from.
Yeah. It's my heart's home. It's definitely Cape Cod.
Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Oh, it's
I love
wonderful.
Boston. Boston's such a fun town.
I've only been to Boston once, but yeah, I mean, I love it up there, just in general in the Northeast.
Oh, it is great. Boston's a great city, and only 2 hours away from the Cape, except for the traffic, and then it's really 4 hours away from it.
Oh, I guess I always assumed Boston was sort of Cape Cod too, but it's not really technically Cape Cod.
No, it's not.
Oh.
It's southwest. Anyway, it's
okay.
not.
Shows you what I know.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like loosey-goosey on our questions. So the first question I have is about your setting and how you have this affinity for Cape Cod. So just to sort of piggyback on that, since you already gave us a little bit of background, is it an island? Is it a peninsula? Do you take a bridge? Like
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's a peninsula. It's arm shaped. Y'all know what an arm is shaped like.
Yeah.
But it's shaped like an arm that's got its fist up. And right at the shoulder. So this is the rest of the country. Right at the shoulder, there is a canal that's been cut. So to get over onto the Cape, you have to cross. There are 2 bridges, the Bourne Bridge and the Sagamore Bridge. You can take either one to get on or off the Cape. So it is essentially an island in that it is cut off by water from the mainland. Mm-hmm. But it's just a very long, narrow spit, really, of sand and dune grass, and a few bayberry bushes is what it comes down to.
That's kind of like the Outer Banks.
I was just going to say, it sounds like the Outer Banks.
It is. Of course, never having been to the Outer Banks, I will agree with that, absolutely. But it is like that. It still has national seashore. It can be very wild and untamed, although obviously it's gotten a lot more suburban over the last 30, 40 years. But it's a world unto itself, certainly.
So let's hear your Cape Cod accent. Can you do it?
I can't really do that, but I can tell you how to pronounce the town in my book, which, I would pronounce Fair Harbor. But if you were a real Cape Codder, you would pronounce it Fair Harbor.
That's how
That-
my father-in-law used to talk, and my mother-in-law. They were from Rhode Island.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
they
Rhode
spent a lot of
Island.
time in Maine. So
Yeah.
So my husband's name is Curtis, and they called him Kurt, but it was cut. There was no R. They cut.
Exactly, because you don't. Everybody knows you don't pronounce R's. You know.
Get in the car.
Yeah, get in the car. You know, that was the great Boston thing. You know, park your car and have it yacht.
right.
Baston, by the way, is pronounced Baston, not Boston.
Oh.
I mean, if you're a real Northy, yeah.
Yes, we could never sneak in and pretend we were locals, like
Oh no,
natives.
don't even try. They'll laugh you right out of the joint.
We would be outed very, very quickly. So we loved Sam. She was.
Oh,
a
thank you. I love
character.
Sam too.
Yeah, and I visualized her kind of like Kristen Johnson, being real tall, the actress Kristen Johnson, who was in Third Rock. And I thought, oops, I just accidentally turned our thing out on my phone, so I'm trying to monitor the chat now. Turn the volume down so that I can see for questions.
I know it's somebody. Is she the one who's? There's also a woman with 4 names who was. I couldn't watch Game of Thrones because it scared me too much.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
But
Yeah.
apparently she's really big and really strong and really impressive. I don't think Sam is like really strong and really impressive, but she is tall.
I know exactly who you're talking about. God, I can't think of her character's name right now, but yeah, she was fantastic in that.
She is impressive.
Brian? Are you talking about Brian?
Yes. That's
Okay. I had to stop and go let my son in the door, so I missed that. Oh, so she was kind of your. I was thinking like Sigourney Weaver.
She wasn't. No, she wasn't. You know who my real thing was? I imagined Julia Child as a young woman. You know, Julia Child was very, very tall. She was, I think, almost 6'2".
Wow.
The women were, 5'10" was really tall. And I think I've read a lot of her memoirs as well as all of her cookbooks and everything. And I think it made her very insecure for a very long time. And, Sam is not the most secure person about her looks. She's secure in who she is, not so much in what she wants to do with her life, but she's got a lot of integrity. But boy, she really sees herself in a way that other people don't see her. And it's going to take her a while to learn that.
Well, we noticed that, like, she referred to herself as a giraffe and everybody else was like, you're a model,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's interesting how self-perception is something that everybody deals with, I think, their entire life, because our who we are changes. So it's always kind of a moving target. But yeah, that was interesting. So and we were going to ask you who that was inspired by. So now we know Julia Child.
Yeah. And Julia Child is also very funny, and Sam cracks me up. So
yeah.
Did she have Julia Child's voice in your head? Because that's very distinct.
No, I hope not. Poor Sam. Could you imagine like this for your entire life? No, I think
That's so funny. So that kind of leads to our follow-up question with that, and that's that. To show, just like you said, she doesn't see herself in it the same way that others see her. And yet, despite that, she still has a lot of confidence, and she still is very self-possessed, even though, we see some of her insecurities. So did you start out with a clear vision of what she was going to be like, or did some of that develop as you were writing this book and developing her as a character?
Yeah, I think I really didn't know what she was like when I started writing it. And, people will, writers will give you this like mystical, but it really felt like that. I felt like
she sprang from Zeus's head fully formed.
That's exactly what I was going. And I thought, wait, no, that's way too esoteric. Yeah, I mean, Athena sprang full blown from the head of Zeus, and Athena was Athena, and Athena was very tall, very strong, very smart, goddess of wisdom. That's the kind of the way she just appeared, and then it just became very clear what she would do next and how she would behave, and I could see that she had some growing to do, but we all have growing to do. And I thought that was important, that she's not perfect yet. She really is trying as hard as she can to find her way. And I think we all are. She's just taller and braver than most of us, and snarkier.
And she handles a knife very well.
She has great knife skills. Spoiler alert. Oh, right. I read it. It's okay.
That was a pretty tragic backstory. I mean, you handled it well, though. You didn't harp on it. It was there.
Yeah.
We knew what she was capable of, but it wasn't this constant.
No, it was just, she was so humiliated by the whole online experience, and losing her job and all of that. I mean, it wasn't a pleasant experience for her. But I do love it when Helene, she doesn't want to tell the story, and then she tells the story, and her new friend Helene reaches over and pats her on the arm and says, "Well done, very well done indeed." That's sort of, I want her to get over it. I want her to feel that way about it. It's like, you did the only thing you could do, and now we're going to move on. Yeah.
Well, we're curious whether you have any culinary training. With all the food and stuff in here, what are you cook just for fun, or have you taken classes? Or
well, I just cook for fun. But I learned a lot about food. Well, from my mother, who's an extraordinary cook, really, really, and she also worshipped at the altar of Saint Julia of Child. But and I learned a great deal from her. But I also. I really did review restaurants in New York City for 2 years when I was starting out. And the man who hired me for this magazine called The Restaurant Reporter was a wonderful guy named Andy Bursch, who left Restaurant Reporter and shut it down to go become the New York food critic for Gourmet magazine.
Wow.
Andy taught me so much, not just about restaurant, but just about food and how, what the sort of the tricks are that can bring food to sort of that next level. And it doesn't have to be fancy food. It just has to be well done, In fact, his favorite restaurant in New York was a sort of quasi diner called the Odeon. It was not a fancy place, but the food was fantastic.
Is that still open?
I think the Odeon is still open. It's
how do you spell that?
The only restaurant left open in New York.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh. It's been horrible. Poor New York. The restaurant scene has been just a tragedy, among so many other tragedies of this past year. Yeah. But I did learn a lot from that experience. And then I've lived in Italy for a couple of years, so I learned a great deal of cooking in Italy. That was fun. That was fun.
I there.
Recommend it. Go to Italy.
Yeah, what took you to Italy?
That was actually two kind of tragedies in my family and also my husband's family. We weren't married then, but we had dear friends, older friends, who knew that we were going through a tough time, and they said, "You know what? We have friends. They have this fallen down house just south of Rome. You want to come and fix it up?" But what they were saying was, if you want to come and fix yourselves back up, please do. And so we did that. And it's kind of like what I talk about. Actually, we went to the Cape first, and we stayed up at the Cape at my grandmother's summer house for an entire winter, kind of getting over this terrible thing that had happened. And then these other friends said, "Now come." So it was really the Cape and Italy. But at any rate, so that's where I learned a lot of that cooking. And my son, my oldest son, lives in Singapore. So we go to, we used to until this past year.
Yeah.
We go there for, as often as we can. And so we go to Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore. And Cambodia. And so I've learned a lot about that kind of cooking. And I cook for fun. So I'm a weirdo. That's all. And I like Cook's Country on PBS.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it's great. It's, it's very much a sort of a test. It was, I think at one point it was America's Test Kitchen, and then it became Cook's Country. But they really tell you the tricks. They really got the tips down. I love the tips.
Oh, well, that's perfect. That's a great segue into our next question, which is about the tips, all the little parenthetical tips that you give. I learned some things. I just thought those were great. So I was just curious, did you plan, like, okay, I have this tip and I need to work it in because I have finite number of tips, or were you just like, oh, I can throw a tip in because I happen to know something?
It worked both ways. So I was going to have a lamb dinner. And I had read somewhere about cooking lamb low and slow, as opposed to, what we all grew up with, which was you throw it in the oven at 350 degrees, and, in an hour and a half, you take it out and that's it.
I've actually never, ever cooked or had lamb.
Oh. And listen, I'm talking to the wrong audience here. Sorry, we can just switch over to the whipping cream tip, which I figured that one out all by myself. You whip that cream, you put it in the fridge. It'll stay there for hours. It's perfectly happy. You don't have to be standing in the kitchen while your guests are waiting for dessert going, It can be ready hours in advance. So some of it's mine, some of it I read and try. I have a dear friend who was a chef of her own restaurant just around the corner from me. I learned so much. She always swore she was going to write a cookbook called the Why Bother Cookbook. She was like, why would you make that?
Bestseller to me.
Well, what's interesting, I realized some things about why I was never crazy about cooking. During the pandemic, I realized that, like, I used to not really like cooking, and I realized it's because I always waited too late to start, and I was too hungry, and I would be getting hangry while I was cooking. So I've kind of learned start early, and Mies actually gave me some recipes, a great curry recipe that is just totally awesome. I'm kind of good where I like it a little bit more. I've learned to, to start.
Yeah, when you make it into kind of a
experiential
word, but yes, experiential. And you're like, well, also, I find that a nice big glass of wine makes it a party.
Can never go wrong with that.
And having a few better implements, I've realized too, like,
and a good sharp knife,
yes,
right?
Yes,
and a good blender.
My son, when he moved home, and it's just so much easier. It's
makes all the difference.
We have a comment from someone. They said they love the tips.
Good.
So I actually have a question about one of them though. What is a neutral oil, and why does that make a difference?
Oh, a neutral oil is just an oil that doesn't have a lot of flavor in and of itself. Olive oil
neutral
has
flavor.
a flavor.
Okay.
Peanut oil has a flavor. Canola oil has no flavor, and for some cooking, you don't want to impose an oil's flavor onto the food. Particularly deep frying, that kind of thing. For other, if you're sautéing artichoke hearts, you want a big, fruity, tasty olive oil, not neutral.
Yeah. Lisa's always noticing olive oil stores every time we go place. She's like, they have an olive oil store.
There's one here in Asheville. Okay, so yeah, I found my first one in Staunton, Virginia. And then my son and I were walking around downtown Asheville today. I'm like, there's an olive oil store. Oh my gosh, I put one in my series in the town of Devil's Cove. Like, every town needs an olive oil shop.
Absolutely. Well, also because, if you go into the olive oil store, they always have a nice basket of fresh bread, so that you can try the different olive oils, and it's heaven.
Not right now, not in the pandemic, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, in the before times.
Yeah.
We have a comment that the Helene and Roland were particularly interesting characters, and that actually is a great segue into our next question, because we felt like all your supporting characters were really well developed and they felt very real, and so we were wondering if you had a favorite in that repertoire.
I have to say, Helene is really she's my fave. I want to be Helene when I grow up, if I grow up. She's just I have a friend who's an artist. She doesn't look like Helene, but she acts like Helene. She just knows who she is through a lot of experience. And she no longer really cares about being nice. She just says it like it is. Although she's deeply caring, and Helene is deeply caring, but she's not going to sugarcoat things. She's going to say it. But also this friend of mine, Jan, has this wonderful t-shirt that says, let me see if I can remember it. I do this thing called what I want. And that to me is Helene. Helene does what she wants, and you can like it or lump it. And she has, she does have, she has a big heart, but she's very sharp. And I think I've always been of the feeling that everybody should have, a 60-something friend every young woman should have a 60-something woman friend who can sort of say, either get over yourself or you're right, this is really hard, and now we're going to push through it. And I think Helene is that kind of person. And she loves him. She's pretty.
I think I'm getting close to the point where I can be that person for someone.
I know.
About myself. I'm like, okay, I'm heading that way too. So all you youngins, come this way.
Oh, honey, I am there. And I am still not that person, but I would love to be that person.
When I have to say a secondary character that I found, I didn't like her. I didn't like Krista, but I found her very real and intriguing. And she kind of just was who she was unapologetically too. I mean, like the whole relationship with the married guy and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Try to be anybody. But
she's a tough cookie. She is a tough cookie. And I see here that somebody wrote, so cool that Helene taught DOG to sit. Because, Helene is the only one that can teach DOG anything.
And shut up.
And apparently go find Helene. And I also thought it was interesting that somebody liked Roland, because I did want to have a question mark around Roland, and also Krista. Because you don't always like people, even when you know them for a long time. And then you find out that there's something there that is deeply touching. And I thought Roland, I was surprised. I never thought I was going to like Roland. And then next thing I know, his name is Rolly, and he's adorable.
Yeah, he kind of saves the day.
We get to know our characters as we write too, and so it's
because
we're developing relationships also.
Exactly. So I very much like the secondary characters.
It'll be fun to see them develop throughout the series. But I was with you, Diane. At first, in fact, I suspected Krista. I was like, there's something about her that it would be, okay if she ended up being the bad guy, because she's got these warts. So I'm glad that, I guess, how much are we giving spoilers? Well, she's not the killer.
Well, I in defense of Krista, I will say she does have high journalistic standards, and she was the one who said, "You got to tell them about me. Don't you dare try to hide this." And of course, Sam goes off and tries to hide it, like the stupidly loyal friend she is.
Yeah, I think that's part of why she was so intriguing, because there were layers to her.
Yeah,
and even though there was things about her I didn't like, there was things that I respected. So yeah.
And so you can't have a book that's full of cotton candy people, right?
Well, and I think that's what you did really well, is that we all have, good things and bad things that are part of our personalities, and we're complex. And I think that because you gave everybody these different sides, it added the complexity to all of the characters.
Well, I thank you. Those are very kind words. And I think I just, honestly, all of, I'm horribly flawed. My friends have flaws. I still love them. I love them to pieces, My goodness, if we didn't love the flaws, we wouldn't have any friends, I
read an article one time and I loved it. It was about Mother Teresa. Well, it was actually talking about how every flaw has a flip side that's a positive. And it was talking about Mother Teresa and how she was really a very stubborn person, but it said she would not have accomplished what she accomplished for people if she was not just annoyingly stubborn. I could not get an answer. And I thought, that kind of makes me feel better about some of my things, like I feel like I'm impatient, but it's like, that means I use my time well.
That's right. So, and you push things forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, our flaws can, I think it was Leonard Cohen who said our flaws can be our strengths, once we recognize that. Yeah.
And apply them the right way. So we've got Chelsea Walters. Her name popped up. For some reason, the other names don't pop up. It just says Facebook user, but we've got Chelsea Waters here. So Walters. So thanks for joining us.
Hi, Chelsea.
Okay, so our next question is about, which you mentioned, DOG, which is I thought that was when I first saw the dog's name, I was like, "Huh, what is that? That's so interesting." And then when you explained it, that I was like, "Wow, okay, I never would have thought of that." So I'm curious how that dog name came to be.
It was actually my niece Caitlin's dog, and I didn't know for ages that I just knew Dog. I thought Dog was the dog's name. So, and this went on for months. And my sister finally looked at me and she goes, "Don't you get it?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't get it. What?" She goes, Dog. I was like, "Oh, that's hilarious." I'm going to steal that, But
one of my friend's cousins had a dog named Diggity, like Hot Diggity Dog.
See, those are funny. I like those. I want to have a cat called CAT. Get it? CAT.
Yeah.
Yeah, you referenced that.
I think that was in the book. Yeah. So that's. I was actually doing an author takeover today, and I asked people. I put a little excerpt about Dog's name. Helene introducing him, and I asked people about dog names, and at least 4 people said, "Oh yeah, my great aunt had a Dog," or my next door neighbor. And I thought, oh, I guess it's as unusual as I thought.
That's so funny. Yeah, that was the first time I had ever heard that, but I thought it was clever.
I thought it was very funny.
And I liked the dog. I mean, Diane and I both love our pups so much. So it was fun to see Dog have such a good role in the book. Be a significant part.
He's going to continue playing a pretty starring role. He's got to stop growing at some point, and he'll probably learn a few more commands. But the actual dog in the book, who is based on our dog, who also is sadly no longer with us, we had an Australian Shepherd for years and years and years. And my character Miles has an Australian Shepherd in the book. She just makes a very brief appearance, but that's actually Ray dog. And the reason she was called Ray was because when we got her, I had 2 little boys, and they wanted to call her X-Ray. And I thought, no, could we just call her Ray? But I like a good funny dog name, though. Also good funny cat names.
Yeah, we've got Mary Crooks here, and we've got Debbie Johnson Stafford here, Susan Slavinsky. Who else we got? Welcome, everybody. I hope I haven't missed anybody. We're glad you guys are here. Speaking of people being here, we thought Trey, that there might be a love triangle with Trey Jason. So were you toying with that idea? Did you consider it? Decide it didn't work? I loved Jason from the start, but I thought that would have been and there was kind of a little triangle for a brief moment.
There was a brief moment of triangularity. And, if I was Janet Ivanovich and I could keep that going for 25 books like she has, I would do it. But, I have always been, and I just am a one-man girl, and therefore so is Sam. Trey didn't have much of a chance. But
personally, I'm glad about that. Like it was good for her to figure out. I think it helped her to figure out, what she was feeling for Jason and all of that. But I'm not so much a love triangle kind of a person either. So
I just don't think you can keep them going for too long without it getting kind of ridiculous. But if you can, like Janet Ivanovich, I don't know how she does it, but she keeps going, and it definitely works. But the beauty of a love triangle is that you can keep that tension going. Will they, won't they, for many more books. But
I think in the mystery book, the nice thing is that that's not the focus. And I personally like to have those relationships be really strong and for them to help one another and, to be a support for one another. And especially for that male figure to be a support to our strong female sleuth.
Yes, exactly. And who I consider to be the most wonderful husband in the world.
No, mine is.
And, see, there you go. But you would know because it's mine. Okay, number 1, number 2, number 3. But or they're tied for first place. But and I think there's it doesn't actually get old if it's a great relationship. And I want her and Jason to have a great relationship. They're going to have to work toward it because they got some baggage they have to get over. But I think long-term, lasting, solid relationships that are based on friendship and laughter and, guy looking really hot. I think that's just great.
But I loved how they came back together and it felt kind of like no time had passed. Like they just sort of fell back into the pattern. And
yes,
I love the kind of meant to be sort of things with them.
Right.
And one thing about the love triangle too is I think the older we get, and Sam was a mature character. I think the older we get, the more we know what we want, and it's easier pretty quickly to kind of go, this isn't it.
Yeah.
Whereas when
exactly.
we're younger, maybe we're like, well, we don't know, which way our life might go.
I don't think it wouldn't have felt right for Sam to get wrapped up in something like that. I agree.
Yeah.
And then too, with the murder mystery, there's just enough conflict outside of the relationship. I just don't feel like we need that.
That's a very good point. It's like it'd be exhausting, if there wasn't some calm in the storm.
But it did give her a chance to get close to him too, so that was kind of a good ploy for that, to kind of get an idea of who he was and whether he's
And I liked having Trey just suddenly turn into this, really not very
nasty.
Yeah.
So
I kind of want him to die too.
Yeah. I know.
Next
Can we add a murder? Can you add an epilogue?
I was kind of going to let Trey go off and not really be too much involved, but after he kicked DOG, my editor came back to me and goes, my editor and my assistant editor both said, he needs to be punished. You need to really, really punish him. I was like, okay, you're Trey.
It needs to be by an animal, because with the birds too, like I think a shark needs to come up and like pull him off a boat, or
all of that would be completely deserved.
Eaten by is it crabs, or what is it that kind of can decimate a body really, really quick? Crabs or lobsters or something?
Oh yeah. Well, they just eat it. Nice.
Trey may never come back.
I know. Trey is going to pay the price. That's what you get. You don't kick the dog. I wasn't even sure kicking the dog was going to be able to go, but it was okay as long as Trey was.
Well, as long as he gets his punishment for it.
He's just desserts. Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
At least it was a big dog that kind of playfully could take it a little bit better than. I mean, still I didn't like it, but it was true to his character, and that's a great way to characterize him and get others to hate him. Somebody suggested piranha. That's a good idea. Yeah, piranhas.
Piranhas. That's it.
How about this? Everybody in the comments, give your thoughts on how Trey should pay for kicking. And Amy will take it into consideration.
That's right. Book 2, Trey pays big time.
Revenge.
DOG's revenge. Yes, there
you go.
That could be a great short story, actually.
There you go. I think it would be a hit. Okay, so Diane and I were both really so impressed with all of your boat lingo and knowledge and sailing, and I mean the little boat, I forget what it's called now, that she ends up on at the end. What was that called?
The Sparrow. It's
I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. So I mean, there's are you having a hot flash?
Yes. Hello everybody, I'm having a hot flash.
Or she's taking off. I don't know what she's doing. I'm getting all fleshy too. Yeah.
So are you a water person? Like, are you a boater? Like, where does that all come from?
Yeah. Well, as I said, my mother had 5 children. My parents had 5 children, and my mother would take us up to the Cape, and my father would come up for 2 weeks. And so she had us the whole rest of the time. So she did what every other busy mother on the Cape did. She would just, at the minute we turned 7, you went to sailing club all day long. That's what you did.
Oh.
So I figured that I probably on the bay that Crystal Bay is based on in the book, I've probably spent at least 1,000 days of my life sailing on that bay.
Wow.
Wow.
So I know it inside and out. And I was a very chicken little sailor when I was little, very chicken. But as long as I didn't like to skipper, I didn't like to be the captain. Terrific crew. And they would just throw us in these boats, not in boats as little as the one that Sam is in. They're about 17 feet long, and they're very flat bottomed. They're called beetle cats, and they're based on old fishing sailboats, because the Cape waters are so shallow that you need what they call a very shallow draft. So they're wide and they don't tip, so they're great for kids. So you'd go to sailing club and they'd throw 4 or 5 of us in each boat. We never wore a life jacket.
Really?
No, it would never have occurred to anybody. We were supposed to have something called life. They were like these floaty things, but we just sat on them.
That's like a major lawsuit waiting to happen. I can't believe.
Believe it was like boot camp for kids in those days.
Is this the 70s?
This is back in the 60s and 70s.
They didn't wear seatbelts in cars and stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have seatbelts. We'd have seatbelts, and we just certainly. So they just throw us in these boats. But they really taught us how to sail. We did a lot of racing, so you really had to get good at it, which explains why Sam could outrace a very large and dangerous motor boat. So I do love it. And when we moved up to New Jersey, we joined a boat club, which is a very fancy name with 3 other couples. We bought like this broken down old C&C about 28 feet, and we would sail it in New York Harbor, which is easily the most scary place in the entire world to sail, because it's full of the Staten Island ferry and freighters and enormous boats that cannot turn around. So you got to turn around. But I love it, and I still share a boat with my best friend Jenny, whom I've known since I was 6 years old in sailing club. She still lives up there, and she and my husband and I share a boat. And so every summer when we get up there, there's a lot of sailing going on. And the name of that boat, it's a sailboat, but it's actually called the Mad Max, which because it is not a dangerous boat in any way.
So, but you pulled a lot of things from your real life, like I do that too.
Well, I think we have to. I think that particularly in the cozy mystery genre, I think people are looking to, explore worlds that they don't necessarily know. I certainly love that. Someone can teach me more about baking bread, I'm delighted. If someone can teach me more about fixing up a mid-century modern motel, cool. Teach me. I love that stuff, The problem is you don't want to get too deep into the weeds, and yet you still want to make it realistic, and you want to give people some kind of interesting background. So,
I think you did it with a lot of finesse. Like I really understood what was happening with the boats and the secret, I forget what you called it, but the secret passageway, that she skates into. And I really understood it, but like you said, it didn't overwhelm. So I think you handled it really well.
Well, I thank you for that, because I really, really struggled with it, because, you don't want to overwhelm people with detail, but you want it to make some kind of sense. You want them to understand how it all works. So if that worked, that's huge, because that was easily the hardest scene in the whole book.
Well, it's kind of hard to make bread making interesting, measure the flour, added the yeast, mixed it.
That's true, because
to do that.
The breads from all over the world and everything. That's
I know.
People and stuff. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. But yeah, you did a great job too of the setting was such a big part of everything in the book. Some books, and it's not for right or wrong, but they could really basically be plunked down anywhere and the same stuff could happen. But your book really made use of of the setting a lot. And
This, I feel like the setting was a character, right? There are some books, I always have felt that way about Gone with the Wind. Like the setting is such a character in the book, and I definitely felt that way about the Cape.
Yeah, this couldn't happen. It could happen somewhere else, but the people wouldn't be the same people. The way it happened wouldn't be the same. And I really did. Oh, cats! There's a cat.
Now he's just gonna fight me. So.
Oh, what's her name?
This is Fritz.
Fritz.
He was Felina for like
Fritz
3
the
days.
cat.
I thought he was female when he was a kitten, but he's a male. So.
He's beautiful. Where were we?
Oh, so settings. I do want to say, Amy, about the setting that I feel like I can legitimately say the Cape with some sort of, legitimacy. Now I don't know what the word is, but you know what? Like I'm not a poser because now I feel like I know something about the Cape. Yeah,
you've been there. Oh, that's good. That's a good test, right? You don't feel like a poser, exactly.
Yeah.
I kept looking for the word wicked.
I have to send you. I have the most wonderful picture because my mother's house and my grandparents' house is on the equivalent of Bayberry Point. It's a little dirt roads that go back through all of these pitch pines and stuff. And they're all private ways. But the signs, which are wooden signs, and they're painted, and it says, private way, please go wicked slow, 15 miles per hour.
That's awesome.
But I love that in the book how you said private doesn't mean private, like don't come in here. It just means this is not maintained.
Yeah, you're going to bounce around a lot.
Tax money does not pave this road or take
proceed at your own risk, right?
Absolutely, you're welcome, but you'd be crazy to drive down this road. If you didn't have to, we have to.
We have a couple comments. One said, you really made me nervous at the end of chapter 41 that Sam was going to leave the Cape. And another comment, very well done, and looking forward to more books featuring these characters. And speaking of the characters, one thing we noticed was how Sam this was kind of a big story of self-discovery on her part. She thought she wouldn't want to stay there, that she'd want to maybe have to take that great job in New York, and she realized that's not the place for her. That's kind of, what life is. We're always, constantly on this self-discovery. But we were wondering if you had a big experience like that where you kind of learned something about yourself and things turned around dramatically, or was that just something kind of just for the story?
Well, I think I did. Yeah, to a certain extent. I have, and I think we all do that. You think you want to go in one direction, that's your dream. You're going to go in that direction, and I was very into journalism, but this is going to sound so cornball. And I was doing very well, and then I had my first child, and I took 3 months, and then I came back and I said, I just need another 3 months.
Moving window.
And then I said, I don't think I can actually come back to the office. I think I have to work from home. And this was before anybody really was working from home. It was, just in the beginning of, I could do it, but it wasn't accepted. And I started doing that. And it was at a time when most of my friends were also having children, and everybody makes decisions that are right for them, or decisions that they have to make. Sometimes life makes the decision for you. But in this case, I was lucky enough that I could make the decision that I would work from home and work a lot less than I was. But a lot of my friends were like me. They were career women, and they wanted, we were working in New York City, and they really, they weren't going to deviate from that. And I really wondered what was wrong with me, why and so I waffled and I worried, and I thought about it a lot. And then this little voice in my head one day just said, just do what your heart wants you to do. And so I didn't go back into, I continued to work, but I didn't go back into the office again until I guess my oldest son was 17 and my younger son was 13. Because I think I have a writer's imagination too. So I knew that the minute I went into the office, the house would burn down. I just knew that.
But isn't that
it can be a detriment, because I was on a plane one time. My son lived in Vancouver, Canada at the time, and we hit a bird on takeoff. And they didn't say anything at first, but I thought, we have not gotten up very high.
That is not good.
Clouds, something's going on. Well, they rerouted us to Seattle. They finally did come on and say, we hit a bird on takeoff. Well, I'm thinking those Canadian geese, and they're freaking huge. You know what I'm thinking? Basically, we hit a bowling ball in the air. So I'm envisioning the windshield, shattering, and I'm thinking, are the pilots going to get sucked out? Are we going down? Every time we hit a bump, I'm like, Bella, we're dead.
Well, but you know what? It did actually happen. You remember the whole Scully thing, the plane that brought down in New York, in the river. You do have a writer's imagination, but you weren't far off from what could really happen.
Yeah. I mean, we see everything that can be possible and think about it. So
So, again, I don't want to make it sound like my decision was the right or the wrong one. It was, I just no longer wanted to go in the direction I always thought I wanted to go. And it was quite a struggle for me.
And look at each of us that have shifted to this writing path from other careers too, at different points in our lives. I never planned to be a writer.
No,
I don't think either of you did either.
No, I just I just had this idea, and I found a lovely agent who really, really encouraged me. I was hugely lucky. And I had gone back, into my career and all of that, and that was all going pretty well, but it was a young person's game, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So once again, I had to really struggle, and and my poor husband was sort of like, yeah, sure, do what your heart desires. And now he's my biggest fan. The guy, he's always online, checking to see what the reviews are on, Amazon.
That's nice.
Yeah, he's adorable. But we make these decisions, and we find ourselves on new paths that can be enormously rewarding. I mean, so far I've been very happy with the detours I've taken.
Well, I do think it's important that we learn too, not to see it as giving up on a dream or as a failure. It's a readjustment. It's kind of going, okay, you know what? The person I was when I made that decision to go in that direction is not who I am now, or the circumstances are not what they were then. And there's nothing wrong.
Right. Our life is not the same. And it's not, I would say it's not really that you're taking the path not taken. You're just on the same path, but it takes different directions. And there is sort of a foolish consistency to staying on the same path for no other reason than because you once decided that was the path, Well,
it's interesting too, looking back and kind of going, okay, now I can kind of see where I liked these things about that job or this job and how that fits into now, you can kind of go, okay, so I was kind of doing similar things, but just in a different way.
Exactly. You're building on what you already know. You're building strengths, but in a different way. I spent my entire career writing. That's what I did, so I can certainly write a sentence. The question was whether I could write a novel.
So do you have any other creative outlets? A lot of people who are creative have multiple creative outlets. Do you have others?
No, I am, I kill plants. I do that. I am a terrible bread baker. I'm a terrible baker. I am a good cook, and I like to cook. As I'm sure everybody on this call, you wouldn't be on this call if you weren't an absolutely addicted reader. And that's kind of my creative outlet. It's just, I guess it's more of my hobby or my escape. But no, I don't paint. I'm not musical. My boys are musical. I don't know where that happened. That was a great gift. But no, I can't do anything except write a straight, maybe tell a story or two. That's my
Kill
own.
people.
Misa's got very musical sons too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know. I'm not sure where that comes from either.
I know, but it's wonderful to have a house full of music. You know, I never thought that that would happen. My husband actually is pretty musical, and has a beautiful voice. But you know, I've got one son that plays the saxophone and the other one that plays the guitar. What do your sons play?
One plays guitar and one plays piano, but they also drum, and the one that plays guitar also plays piano, and the one that plays piano does drums and all kinds of other things. So they're kind of multi-musical.
That's so much fun. I love that. I really love that. Are you are you like creative? Like, do you paint or anything?
I like to paint. My mom and my brother are both artists, and so I can paint, but I'm not inspired that way. But I'm trying to teach myself to paint in watercolors and just to, you know, when I need to take a break from writing and do something else, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's the thing, is taking a break from writing.
I did some cake decorating, and I'll do that every once in a while. But I stupidly, like the last thing that I made was for me. So I made her a birthday cake that looked like her dog, but I forgot she was gluten-free. So here's your useless cake that looks like a dog.
Okay.
No, that was early days.
Well, my sister is deathly allergic to nuts. I mean, deathly allergic to nuts, right? And I have known this all my life, and I love my sister. And yet, 10 years ago, the whole family came to, it was our turn to do Thanksgiving, and I thought, I know, I'll make a chestnut stuffing for the turkey. That will be wonderful. And the poor woman walked in and she could smell it. And she went, "What is that smell? That smells like nuts." And I said, "Oh, that's the stuffing." And it pervaded the turkey. She couldn't eat any of the turkey.
It's all about habit, isn't it? Like if you're not in the habit.
And to this day, she accuses me. I'd actually be a very good murder mystery of trying to kill her with my stuffing. Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Now you're always looking at ways to murder people, like
It's
ideas
terrible.
are sparking.
I hope nobody ever goes into my search history. I'm always, I'm like, can you kill somebody with a pineapple? Kind of questions.
What I always think is funny is like when you research stuff and then it'll start like suggesting things to you. And it's like, that was just for a book. I don't really need that. Like I've been looking up a bunch of stuff on model trains, and then I was looking up a bunch of poisons. It's like
poisons. Well, that's the other thing, we have to find different ways of knocking people off. In small towns where by the time you're done, there's easily half the population dispatched.
Why anybody still lives there is the mystery.
I know. You would think people would say, you know what? We're out of here.
Yeah.
Kind of like the town from It, where they sort of have that amnesia.
Exactly.
So what's next for you? When's your next book coming out and all that?
The next book is called An Eggnog to Die For. So you can guess what holiday we're aiming at.
Wait, it's called what? Say that again.
An eggnog to die for.
Oh, cool.
So Easter eggs.
Yeah, exactly. How did that do? It does have a rather unusual approach to, I admit, there's a dead Santa. Okay, there's a dead Santa, but he's not a nice Santa, so it's okay. So in that one Sam is creating the Feast of the Five Fishes for Christmas Eve. It's usually 12 fishes or 7 fishes, but Sam believes that it should be easy. So we got a Feast of the Five Fishes. So that's a lot of fun. And Jason is being a little distant. And so there's a question mark going on there. And but it is a Christmas murder mystery. So it's fairly lighthearted, and it's actually good fun. And then the next one comes out the next spring, June, I think, it's a summer book, and that's going to be called Murder is No Picnic.
Oh, that's a
It's
cute
about the death of a famous cookbook writer, um, and what's behind all of that. So it's actually a kind of interesting look at that world. So yeah, so though there's poor Sam, and she just, no matter what she does, I have her stumbling over one dead person after another.
Lucky for us.
Oh, you're so good. You're so good. Yeah. Well, now one of you has a book coming out in April, but I forget.
Yeah, I do.
There you go. That's yeah. So, so is it going to be like the May book of the month?
Yeah, yes, it is actually.
Yay! Good, good.
Yeah, it's Death Gone Awry, and that's ripped from the headlines of my life plot.
That's so
Well, I'm
funny.
not sad to say goodbye to.
That is so great. That is so great. And what's next in the fixer-upper world?
So it's going to be a church, an old country church that they're gonna turn into something else.
Oh, I've always
just got the cover. I
wanted
can't show it yet because they're tweaking. The cat came out, I thought, just slightly too light colored. He's supposed to be kind of buff, like the color of sawdust. That's his name. And he looked a little white, but it's a really cute cover. They did a great job. So once they make him a tiny bit darker, then I'll be able to show that. So now, I'm trying to think of some interesting places, other than just houses. I thought, what are some interesting places that, could be turned into something else? And of course, it's set in Nashville. So I've gotten a lot of my ideas actually from places in Nashville, like the motel was sort of based on the Loveless Cafe, which is an old roadside motel that's been converted into shops. And then this is kind of based on the Ryman, which was an old church that was turned into an entertainment venue.
Oh,
so a little bit kind of pulling on that.
Yeah, well, I've always loved it. I think that's a great series. If that's not true, you see, I do have some creativity. I really do love, because we've lived in falling down houses all my life. I lived in an old house, and and we've got 2 houses that are now falling down around our ears. And we insist on doing everything ourselves, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun. So
it's so much work, though.
Yes, it is. It is, and it's never ending.
Right.
But it's still. I do love that. I love that part. So, yeah. You guys, you definitely you're both doing stuff that I adore, and I wish I could write about it. So, thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for writing your awesome series and introducing us to
thank you for being here.
And it's been so much fun talking to you, and we both really enjoyed this book, and I know the Book Warriors did too. So thank you
all. It's been great. It's the big first step on a journey, so it's very nice to have that kind of encouragement. I appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe we'll see you in person at Malice Domestic, or
if they ever do it in person.
Yeah,
I know. Well, they will. They will. Because I have just, the other writers in this field have been so good to me. So good to me. I cannot tell you how supportive and good. There's no reason why they should be so nice, and they are just. So I just want to meet everybody and be able to hug and stuff, I
found that too. I think it's because we're all weirdos and we kind of understand each other.
Yeah, we found our people.
or we don't want to be inspiration for somebody's murder mystery.
Yeah.
Recognized in the pages.
Oh, she's nasty.
Yeah.
I know who that one is. Well, Judy and Susan have said thanks. They enjoyed themselves, and we have too. So
great.
And we're so glad that all of you book warriors joined us tonight. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your support. And I can't tell you what it means to me. It's really great. Thank you all of
you. Thank you. Thanks again, Amy. We'll get this all tweaked up and share the video and put it on our YouTube channel, which we're still kind of developing. But so more to come in the emails on that stuff. But yeah, thank you for being here, and make sure and let us know when your next one's coming out, because we would love to have you back.
I would love to be back. I will let you know. Absolutely.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.